Wow, welcome everybody. Thank you for putting all of your information in the chat. It looks like we have representation from all over the country, which is fantastic. So good afternoon. It is now afternoon on the West Coast, and we are coming at you live from Seattle, Washington, where it's amazingly sunny, which is wonderful for us. So we see Chicago, we see California, we see Long Island, just so fantastic. So thank you so much. So welcome to one of our many virtual events that we've had to shift this past little over a year now. But we are hoping that this is one of many events that you've been able to attend over the past year virtually, and several more to come. So be sure to check your emails frequently for the variety of events that WashU is trying to bring into your homes in this new environment. So we are just delighted. My name is Anura, by the way, and I am the co-chair of the WashU Seattle Network. And I'm also a member of our regional cabinet here on the West Coast. I'm really excited to moderate this event for you today. So you're here because you are going to learn from two of our most amazing and inspiring artists today. Michael is here. Michael Alm and Lippy are both here to be able to bring you their work and how they got started, and really to highlight some of their work for you live. So we hope that you are able to stay throughout for the hour and really enjoy what they're showcasing today. So Michael is going to give us an inside look at his acclaimed hybrid sculpture studio and furniture shop. So you can see where he is now. And he's going to share a bit about his journey from WashU and his commitment, his deep commitment to educating others. And then after that, we'll head over to Nikki, and she is going to talk to us about Loosely Hinged, which she owns, and she'll share her take on living that creative life, including some of the risks and choices that have led to an inspiring career spanning more than 40 years. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple rules. This, just to let everyone know, we are bringing this to you in the hopes that this will be, inspiring and help cultivate a conversation amongst all of you that are here representing a wide variety of industry. And so just as a disclaimer, WashU is not responsible for comments, posts, or tweets made by social media users, and content by users other than WashU Alumni Association does not reflect the views or policies of the university. And just again, we also reserve the right to remove any of the content for expletives, vulgarity, anything that is irrelevant, off topic, and that is just our disclaimer. We know you all will be well behaved, but I do want to let you know that this is a safe space for you to really express yourself and ask those questions. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll be having a Q&A session afterwards. So we are confident that everyone will behave themselves. So thank you so much. So we are going to start with talking to Michael here to have an introduction to him. And hopefully you all can put the questions in the chat. And so I will kick it over to Michael to introduce himself and start off with our tour.
Hi, I'm Michael Alm. This is my space. This is my shop here in West Seattle, in Seattle, Washington. And I make a whole bunch of things. I run a YouTube channel. I make sculptures and art pieces, and I also build custom furniture as well in my shop. So I'm
fantastic.
Oh, go ahead.
So Michael, tell us. So you are in West Seattle, but you came to us from WashU. So how did you even start out?
So I started out, I kind of, after WashU, was looking at places that would support a nice art scene, but wasn't like big New York, and was really passionate about outdoors and climbing and hiking and stuff. And so I just kind of looked around the country and found Seattle. And I came out here to visit for about a week. And I actually managed to meet someone that worked with Dale Chihuly, and ended up getting hired on with Dale Chihuly as one of their shop assistants, and that was certainly enough to just secure that I'm moving to Seattle. And I thought it would be a short stay, but I've really enjoyed living in Seattle and ended up just yeah, putting down roots and building various shops over the years.
And for Dale Chihuly, for those of you who are not familiar with this work, we encourage you to just to check out the link that's included in your event email. But Michael, we understand that you were installed intricate glass compilations, museums, public spaces, even in private homes.
Yeah, so my
Wow.
my background from WashU is I studied sculpture, and so coming out here, I was looking for a sculpture job, and they were hiring people in what they called mock-up, which is building and installing chandeliers. So we would build them in the Ballard warehouse building, and have the clients show up, review them, and then usually we were the person that would be flown out to install them on site. So Chihuly builds chandeliers and towers and sconces and all sorts of just packed glass sculptures. And so for about 2 years, I built and installed his sculptures, working at all sorts of different museums all over the country, and ended it with the DeYoung art installation in San Francisco. Yeah.
Wow, that is fantastic, and really what an experience to be able to take this on the road and go into people's homes. I would be so nosy and curious about that. So look
Yeah.
at the drawers and the cabinets. Yes. So awesome. Michael, would you have a moment to take us on a virtual tour of your studio? It looks like you have a lot of fun things back there behind you.
Yeah, sure thing. So it's kind of a hybrid studio, as I mentioned before. It's like a half sculpture, half woodworking. So the part of the shop that you're looking at right now is the heart. It's my table saw, and where a lot of things start, ripping down materials and creating stuff. And I've got the bandsaw over there. A lot of my sort of milling stuff and shaping stuff is over here. That's my thickness planer, sander, and then so I've got clamp storage and tools and stuff. Right now I have a massive bookcase that I just finished. I'm installing it on Monday, and this is a piece for a client that's in West Seattle also, and I'll be installing it, like I said, on Monday. The whole thing, everybody keeps asking about how I'm going to move it, but the whole thing is built in parts. So there's 3 sections, 3 bays right here, here, and here. They all come apart. The top and the bottom lift off, so it's 5 separate pieces that I can just bring to the shop and bring over to their home and install. And then wrapping around the studio, let's turn you again. So this is my carving workbench. I don't know if it's a little blasted out with that light, but you'll see all my carving tools along here, and this is where I do most of the sculpture work is going to happen here. This is my dust collection system. I always get questions about that, and yeah, and wrapping around this side is a lot of material storage, sort of overflow space, nail guns, all sorts of other like odds and ends that I need. My chop saw is right here, which I bought for my very first shop when I moved out here. And let's keep going over here, drilling, and I've got more material storage, like small part storage and stuff. And then if we wrap all the way around, I've got a setup right here for my art pieces, so that you guys can see the examples of my sculpture.
Amazing. Michael, we have a question in the chat about, oh, that's awesome. We have a question in the chat about the wood that you used for your shelf there, which is very impressive.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's white oak, and it's mostly white oak plywood, and then it's edge banded with solid wood.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And then someone else would like to know how the sections actually come apart.
Yeah, so I'll turn you back around then.
Spin us back around. Ooh.
Yeah, there it is. So it's currently not screwed together, but it screws in from, you can't really see the base, but this section right here, all the way across, removes as well, just like the top does. And it sort of sandwiches the whole thing together. And then each one of these bays is separate. And then this let's see, the trim is only on this bay. So that trim actually separates from this section right here. Oh, you can't see me from this section right here. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little confusing. There's a full YouTube video on this, along with pretty much every project I make. I've got a YouTube channel that I started about 3 or 4 years ago. And that's part of my woodworking education side of things. I've been, especially during COVID, I've been spending a lot of time in the shop, just teaching people how to make things. And so something like this bookcase, I'll have full plans on my website that people can have, plus a free video that they can watch. And I get a lot of people who do woodwork, but I also get a lot of people who just want to watch somebody build something, which is fun too.
Yeah, it's totally therapeutic. I can completely relate to that. So I don't do woodworking, but I would love to watch.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, Michael, what was your sort of your inspiration, or what was your plan, if you had one, to transition to making videos? Was it a sort of a COVID inspired thing, or did you have a YouTube channel before? And what was that thought process even like?
Well, yeah, it predates COVID. I kind of, so like WashU was a great primer education for my woodworking skills. I learned a lot about setting up a shop there. Like I said, I was in the sculpture department, so I had, lots of teachers that just taught me how to set up a shop. So I started there, but it was also a sculpture education, not a cabinetry education. So a lot of stuff when YouTube started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I started following a lot of people, and I was mostly just a fan. I was just really enjoyed watching other people make stuff, learning from them, and kind of building my knowledge base. And after about 4 years of watching YouTube, I felt like I realized that I was very similar to the people that were teaching on YouTube, and so I decided to give it a go. So my early videos are not good. They were shot on a cell phone, and gradually I've been getting better, teaching myself how to teaching myself how to make stuff and how to produce videos, which was a big learning curve. Mostly like video editing has been the biggest learning curve so far. So
do you do everything yourself for the YouTube, including the editing and things like that, or do you have a service that you would recommend for people to sort of look into? What's that like?
So I did all the editing. I up until about 6 months ago, I've been doing all the editing myself, but the channel's grown pretty quickly, especially during COVID. There's been a lot of people just in general, like online education stuff has swelled during this period. And so just in order to keep up with it, I've hired a good friend of mine to help me with the rough editing. I still do about half of the work, and then he takes over. He does basically processing the footage really early on. But I mean, I think the nice thing about YouTube is people are, especially in the DIY space, they're not expecting high production value early on. They're more interested in like how you relay the information. So just good storytelling is probably more important than good editing. Like the quality of your camera isn't that important compared to like just being able to teach people, because that's what they're really looking for.
Yeah, it seems like a really understanding community, because really content is what people are searching for in the first place, and not necessarily lighting in your videos. So
yeah. So as things progress, I work on lighting and things like that. But early on, it was more about like how to tell a story properly.
Right, that's great. Hey, Michael, a couple people have asked to see a close-up of the artwork, the woodworking that you just showed us with the animals. Do you have a second to do that? Yeah.
So we'll set up over here now. There we
go.
go.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about? Wow, thank you. Yes, that is awesome. We can see that, especially the details of the eyes. Would you like to talk to us about each one of these and the inspiration and sort of the technique?
Yeah, so these are, so this is my art side of things. This is that workbench on the far side. And these are all wood. And it's sort of a process that I developed over time. I worked for a lot of museums, and we always got scrap materials. And one of the first ones that I made was this. This is kind of inspired by my time going to natural history museums and looking at skulls and animal anatomy and stuff. And this is a goat skull that I built. At the time, I was building a lot of pedestals and bases for art pieces for the museum. So I like this idea of the sort of display of it is as important as the object itself. And these are all just, it's like I said, it's all wood. They're wet bent. So I soak them in water, bend them around a plywood structure on the inside, and just gradually using waterproof wood glue these down. You'll see little pinholes in them too. And they'll, that's kind of where I've put, I just basically put push pins into the center of it. I've got a really soft wood in certain sections. I've got a basswood, which is what the horns are made out of. So the early ones were these skulls, and I liked using the wood because you can get it so thin. Like, whereas if you carve solid wood, it's really hard to get that sort of thinness to it. And so this one's, again, an early one. As I progressed further, I kind of learned more about the process. The rabbit here is built in the same way, but just a little bit improved on my technique. I've also added cedar chips to the areas to give them the appearance of fur. I'm not going to pick that one up, but I can show you this one's got a similar technique right here. So these are individually applied cedar chips, which are gerbil bedding or animal bedding that I just buy in big bags, and I separate out the colors, and then I work from the bottom all the way forward to the top and slowly add it in. And then I've dyed some parts black with India ink to just give a little bit of extra tone. And so this is carved walnut. The head's carved out of wood. The glass eye is a taxidermy eye. And then the other side is all carved maple. So this is all solid maple through there. And that's a combination of power carving and hand carving. So.
Wow. And Michael, where did you get, you mentioned the animal bedding, which is super creative. Where do you get some of the maple, and how do you find the right sourced wood for your mission?
So yeah, I mean, this is mostly scrap from, I worked at a frame shop when I was building this.
Oh.
And they were milling a whole bunch of frames, and we'd always get these really thin strips of wood. Looking around to see if I think I've got one over here. One sec. Sorry. Should have grabbed this beforehand. Here we go. I'm back. So when you're milling lumber, you'll end up with these strips. It's just kind of the nature of it. You'll just have like the saw blade will hit, and then this one little curl will come off. I was really inspired by these because they're so flexible. And then if you get them wet, they're just like a noodle. And the instant they dry, they hold their form. So you can actually use this for like the structures of the ears and stuff. I would build a mold, get them wet, glue them into the sort of cupped mold. Then you pull it out, and they're super strong after that. So that's sort of, it was really just, all this was made out of scrap that was left over from working at either the frame shop or at the museum. And as I messed around with it more, I just found more ways of using the material and sort of creating these studies. And then eventually, I mean, I eventually ran out of scrap material and started using wood veneers. And I've did a series of bird wings for a show a while back, and these just like wall mounted bird wings. This is the only one that I have left, but I made one that was like I think 7 feet long, like a golden eagle wing. And yeah, it's been a really fun experiment, and it's really symbiotic with what I do with the furniture making. Most of this stuff, it can just be made with the spare parts that I've left over from other furniture projects. The snake that's right here is from a 4x4 that I tore out of a friend's house when I was doing remodel work for them. The eagle that's on top is or the hawk. It's that's again these wood veneers and the cedar chips that are here. I don't know how well you can see that piece.
No, we can see it really well, the detail, especially of the beak and the wing too. And so, Michael, speaking of scraps, you know, we live, you and I, you know, living in Seattle, and Mickey as well, we live in a one of the more expensive, you know, places in the country, especially when it comes to real estate and commercial real estate. So what do you have any words of wisdom, or, you know, how do you sort of square the cost of living, studio space, materials, and just sort of the ups and downs and the unpredictable nature of the economy and consumerism with just really, you know, being an artist and sticking with who's just starting out, sticking with that dream. What do you have any words of wisdom?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've spent my whole career on multiple income streams where I've only had one full-time job, which was with Chihuly. Everything else has been sort of like 3 days a week, 5 days a week, but like partial hours. And so I always find time for this stuff kind of in the middle of that. And I've always had kind of alternative living situations. I used to live in my shop in Georgetown, which was a pretty affordable neighborhood if you can find a space that's available. And right now, the place that I'm in, I own this building. I found this about 5 years ago, and needed a lot of repair work. And I did a lot of the repair work myself. And it's got a house attached to it, and we're in the garage, and there's a living space above the garage. So I rent out the house, live above the garage, own the garage space, and then I don't pay rent on, well, I mean, the renters of the house pay for my mortgage. So being
creativity, so you have to be very
yeah.
creative with your revenue stream. It sounds like just really try to flex and you know, see where you can have the income and have multiple revenue streams. You're right about that.
Yeah, and in the like now with things like YouTube and the education side of things, that's been a big help to me. To just my ultimate goal has always been to be independent and work for myself. And in order to do that, you got to hustle, but it's really rewarding. And I've had a career so far where, you know, if I'm not working for myself, I'm working for an art museum or a frame shop where I'm interacting with a lot of the same culture that I'm focused on. So, and then with the YouTube thing, now I have much more of a international following where people, I mean, I just got a video today of someone making one of my pattern plywood projects in Israel. And I was just like, it's wild. It's so cool. And people are just following those instructional videos everywhere, at least everywhere where they speak English. But even that, sometimes people they'll sit through my, you know, me talking, and they'll just figure it out from watching the visuals. So
that is so amazing. Well, thank you for that, Michael. If you have time to stick around, we may have, we'll have some Q&A in a little bit after we speak with Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm stick around. Okay, thank you very much. And for those of you who are tuning in, feel free to put questions for Michael or for Mickey in the chat, and we will shift over here to Mickey. So thank you so much, Michael. So Mickey Lippy, a studio jeweler for more than 40 years, as I mentioned before. Her work, also international, just like Michael, has been exhibited in the United States, Germany, and Korea. And her focus for many years was on the production line, but for the last several years, she's been making very unique, one-of-a-kind jewelry. And she has also been a member of the women's hiking group for the last 20 years. And her inspiration, a lot of her inspiration is drawn from that work. So Mickey, we are so just thrilled to have you join us here today. And we would love for you to tell us your story and show us all of your goods.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have been making jewelry for almost 50 years. I meet young jewelers and I start talking to them, and I realize that I've been making jewelry longer than they've been alive. Sort of puts a little perspective on things.
It sure does.
what I wanted to do today is to tell you 3 stories of the career that I've had. And the first one actually took place at Washington University when I was there in college. And I was a junior, and I just was feeling like I just wasn't getting it. It just wasn't working for me. And I went to talk to one of my professors about this because I really thought I should just drop out. And I told him that, and I said, there are just so many students here that seem so much more talented and have so much more training than I do. And he looked outside. He said, it's spring outside. He said, some of the trees have bloomed and they're quite beautiful. He said, but you can't cut down the ones that haven't bloomed yet. They may bloom even more beautifully than these. And I was very thankful. And I went back and finished college. And but I realized once I got out that what I really wanted to do was build things. My degree was in commercial art, but I really wanted to build things. So I made pottery for a while. I did weaving for a while. And I finally found a course and picked up a torch, and that was it. And I've been soldering metal ever since. And the next story takes place a few years later when my husband and my 2 children and I were living in Charlottesville, Virginia, outside of Charlottesville. And I had a studio there I was sharing. They had taken an old elementary school and turned it into artist studios. And I was very fortunate to have a space there. But my daughter had sold Girl Scout cookies, and we were delivering the cookies, and we were going from house to house. And we went into this one house and gave the woman her cookies, and she asked me what I did. And I said, oh, I make jewelry. I said, but I keep my prices very low so my friends can afford my jewelry. And she looked at me and she said, don't hold your creativity back.
Oh.
And I went home and I thought about that. And I realized that what I needed to learn and what I did learn was that in a production line, you have a range of prices, and you learn with formulas and with experience to work to that price point. And when I teach, I have a whole handout about that. And it starts out with how much money do you need to live for a year? And then you work backwards from that to get to what you need to earn per hour.
Wow. So something tangible that you can have in front of you and follow your progress and track, keep yourself accountable type of thing.
Right. Well, because so many people just, pricing is just a vague sort of thing, and this gives you something really concrete to work with.
Right.
So the third story I'm going to read, and my husband and I were very fortunate in that we lived in Germany for a year. He had a research position and I had a studio to share. And we were in Leipzig, Germany, which had been East Germany. We were there 10 years after the wall came down. And so this is my studio. My studio was in a town nearby. So every day I would take a short train ride and then the Straßenbahn to the studio. So here we go. April 15th, 2001. Ugly. This word has come up twice in the last month or so. The first time was when Andrea, my studio partner, came over to my bench one morning and began to tell me the story of a conversation she had had with her brother. It obviously was heavy in her mind. Andrea has 3 brothers, one a fraternal twin, one a few years older, and one who is 13 years older. The older brother was a little bit of a father figure to them because their father had passed away when Andrea and her twin were very young. She had sent this brother a copy of her new catalog. It's a really wonderful book, and her design, the design showing her work, were fabulous. I really like the jewelry that she's making. She's developed a very individual approach to wax carving and casting. She had waited a while to send the catalog, but now that she'd sold a few pieces and had gotten a good peer review, she sent one to her brother. He called the day he got it. "Why do you make such ugly work?" he asked, speaking in German, but saying the word ugly in English. He continued, "You have gone to art school for so long. Why do you make such ugly jewelry? You have been making jewelry for so long. How can you make such ugly jewelry?" She had no answer. She knew he probably wouldn't heap praise on her, but she was not prepared for this. She was upset. A week or so before this particular morning, I bought an American fashion magazine. When I'm in the States, I buy one every once in a while. But being in Germany, I thought it would be nice to have something with words I could understand and pictures that I could relate to. But as is usually the case, none of the clothing was anything I would wear. One photo really stood out. The model had on a skirt and one black sleeve. That's right, one sleeve. She was nude from the waist up, except for the sleeve. She was hunched over and you really couldn't see much of her body, but if you were wearing this in public, you'd have to stand up. The price on this sleeve was $1,200. Yeah, $1,200. And all you get is one sleeve. Certainly more money than I had ever spent on half my wardrobe. I showed the photo to Andrea. Proudly, I used one of my German words, "Sehr komisch," I said, which means strange and crazy. Who would pay $1,200 for one sleeve? Her answer was, "There are many people who think our jewelry is sehr komisch." I said, yeah, we were certainly not mainstream. When she told me about her brother's reaction to her work, I reminded her of our conversation about the sleeve and our jewelry. What is wonderful to one person is not necessarily so to another. She shook her head and agreed. However, I also pointed out that her brother was a mean person. There are lots of ways to say that you don't really care for something. Ugly in English in a German conversation is about as mean as you can get. We talked about that for a while. A few weeks later, Andrea told me that Philip Sayet, a very well-known Dutch jewelry artist, was going to be giving a lecture and a workshop at the art school near our studio. We were invited to the lecture. I was always pleased when there was a reason to go to the school. As he showed his slides, he spoke a little in English, and I got the general idea. After his lecture, Dorothea Pruhl, the professor at the school, invited me to join the workshop. Wow, I was really thrilled. This is what I've been waiting for. The theme of the workshop was light and light. He really liked the words in English better than in German because in English, it's the same word, but with two meanings. We all sat around a table and Philip asked each of us to tell our name, where we were from, and what kind of work we were doing. He really perked up when I said I was from Seattle. He wanted to talk about Bill Gates and computers. Dorothea cut that off quickly. Stop talking about computers and talk about the project, she said in German. A friend translated for me. The workshop was not really very successful for me. I quit. I haven't quit very many things in my life. But on the second day, when Philip said in English that the pieces I brought in were ugly, I felt we were not really on the same page. There was that word again. I had to think, did he really know what he was saying? But I know he speaks English very well. Actually, what he said was, why do you bring me these ugly things? You look like a nice person. You draw well, you have good handwriting. I answered that I would consider his view of my work. He said, you're taking this very well that I call your work ugly. My thoughts were, hey, buddy, after all I've been through in my life, you telling me that these little workshop pieces are ugly, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. I thought about all of this for the next day and decided several things. One, he was not a very good teacher to tell a student their work was ugly. If he's trying to jumpstart you, that's not a very good way to do it. The other was that I was probably not going to get much out of this, and I was better off staying in the studio and working. So I told him I really had to get back. I said I was glad that I had taken this workshop. I told him that in the States, we don't generally have themes for workshops. It's usually a process. He tried to convince me that I should continue, but I said it was just not in the realm of what I was thinking about. Where do you go from ugly? Andrea told me that the students were not very happy with him either. It seemed that instead of trying to gently guide them in a direction, he told them where to go with their work. She said that Dorothea had taught that way when it was East Germany, but now her style is quite different. She helps the students find their own voice. That year was a really pivotal year for me in a lot of ways. And I'm really very glad that we were able to do it. And when I teach, which I do a fair amount of, I draw on that knowledge and that information quite a lot.
And Mickey, thank you so much for sharing all three of those really inspiring and deeply impactful stories. And it sounds like over the trajectory of your career, you've been these really powerful images and phrases that people have told you, from the blooming to sort of not selling yourself, don't undersell yourself, and how do you price yourself, right? As part of this whole how you value yourself as an artist, both monetarily and in the space, and with the culmination of your story in Leipzig, I think that. And we're hoping that this evokes a lot of inspiration and for people to continue to fall forward, and continue to find their space and find their own meaning in their work, just as you have.
Right.
And so, Mickey,
I would just like to say that if anyone wants to email me or have a Zoom call, I'm more than available.
That is very, very generous, Mickey. Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to show us? I think you've piqued so many people's curiosity. Do you have any work that you'd like to display for us today?
Well, yeah, there's 3 sets of images I think that you can show. The first one.
We're going to show this first one here.
So this, I have now a vision problem, and I'm really not able to solder the way I used to. However, I had my first lesson this morning, and I'm going to be making pewter vases. So that's the future. But my most recent body of work had to do with finding trash on the street and making jewelry out of it. And then the center there, you see a collection of the trash, and then there are 2 pieces of jewelry. But what I did is I had all this trash left over. So the Seattle Metals Guild sponsored an exhibition, and 15 jewelers came and picked out some trash, and they now have made work, and that exhibition will open April 22nd, I think, which is Earth Day.
Fantastic.
And okay, well, that's okay. The necklace on the right is similar to the one I'm wearing, and that's with a piece of car tire. So it's like a feather, but the veins of the feather are the treads of the tire. Okay, next image. Yeah. And more trash. That's another piece of the red plastic that I found. And the center section has a piece of rubber, and the earrings on the right are cutouts of also rubber. You find a lot of black rubber from tires when you walk in Seattle.
Yes, indeed.
And the next image. And this is a collection of necklaces, all of which have trash. The one on the right, I will tell you, I found that piece of rusted steel in exactly that shape. I did not alter it at all. I put a piece of mirror behind it. The one second on the right has a piece of metal that I found on the beach. That's brass, that's washed around in the ocean for who knows how long. Same in the one in the middle. That one on the left has a piece of rusted wire and then black rubber. So this is the body of work, which is my most recent, and which is on view at the gallery and on my website. But like I said, I'm just going to be starting to make pewter vessels, and hopefully the size and scale of them will allow me with my vision to continue.
So it sounds like you've had to really sort of flex and adapt some of your work with, a couple of your new limitations, Mickey. Do you have a sort of not a backup plan, but what was your journey like in the very, very beginning when you stuck with it and you graduated and you left WashU? What was that journey like? And we're obviously still experiencing those ups and downs and have to be flexible. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of that flexibility that you had to have early on? And again, the same question that went to Michael, the ability to afford to live while still pursuing your passion and your educational outcomes.
Well, we've lived all over the United States. And so I've had studios in a lot of different places. But probably the most interesting was when I shared the space with some goats. And it was winter in Ohio, and the snow had collapsed the goat shed. The goats moved in next door to me, and I could hear them gnawing on the door. Yeah, no, I've had all kinds of spaces.
All kinds, clearly. All kinds of office mates as well. So yes. Really flexibility, just like Michael said, flexibility, adaptability, just being really, hustling and being scrappy, and really being willing to look under spaces for opportunities that others may pass up.
I've been very fortunate that in that wonderful school building, I had a space, but then there was the shared space with the goats. Since I've been in Seattle, when we moved to Seattle, I had 2 kids still at home. So my studio was, we bought this house knowing that half of the basement would be my studio. And I had 4 part-time workers. And so, it was kids and family upstairs and work downstairs. And that was a really important thing too, because I had to learn to go to work. And when I was downstairs in the basement, I was at work. I didn't do laundry. I didn't come upstairs and start dinner. I was at work. And that's the way that I had to do it in order to make it work,
That's right. Otherwise, everything will, there's everything that will be distracting, and we'll have a lot of unfinished pieces, and that frustration of not having that singular space mentally, physically, emotionally would have been difficult. And Mickey, so I have had the pleasure of coming to your beautiful home in the past to do some volunteer work as part of WashU's network with donations, with untangling all those knots of jewelry, which I love doing. I also find that really therapeutic, and donating some jewelry for women to be able to sell and then in turn raise money and lift themselves up out of their social situation. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that started? And I know it's kind of been a pause with COVID, but really how that started and what your mission is with that.
Well, I was thinking that I would like to give back to the community, and if, it should involve my jewelry skills. And so after a little bit of a false start, what we do is we collect jewelry that women aren't wearing anymore. I'm sorry. And we clean it and sort it and give it to women in shelters. But we get a range of jewelry. So the bulk of the jewelry goes to the women in the shelters. A little bit over here is just garbage that you really can't do much with. We actually sell that on eBay for $68 a pound. And on the other end is better jewelry. So we've started having sales of that. And between the scrap of the broken gold, we get a lot of broken gold little chains, and sterling, we have to date given out $50,000 to the shelters in unrestricted grants.
That is amazing. And these are largely women in family shelters, domestic violence and homelessness, and women who are really trying to, we help lift them up and hopefully, have a meaningful impact on that. And $50,000, that is amazing. And so has COVID, I assume that COVID had impacted that, but I'll let you handle that. So how's that been?
Kind of, sort of, because what we did, we also, about the time that COVID started, we partnered with a company in Seattle called Ridwell, and we got 32 boxes of jewelry, big boxes of jewelry. So what we did is people just came and picked up a box and did sorting at their home. And some people did Zoom sortings, so that they had a little, hey, look at this kind of moment. And so we've sorted all 32 of those, and sometime in the next week or so, we're going to get another 30 to 50 boxes.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's continued, and it's a really nice connection for people to know that although they're sitting in their home, they're working on a project that connects to other people and to other women. And we also give jewelry to Dress for Success. And there's a couple of other organizations. They're all women-based that help women in some way or another.
That's right. Yeah. And if those of you who don't know or are not familiar with Dress for Success, it helps women get interview clothing and appropriate jewelry to be able to actually show up to an interview and feel good and confident, and also at the workplace. So things that really have tangible results, which is, I think some people assume that everybody has a business casual outfit and everyone has jewelry to match with. That's not at all the case. And so this is one of those organizations that Mickey has supported for years and years to be able to help women in this really tangible way. So thank you, Mickey, so much. We enjoyed looking at your pieces and your creativity. And as you said, lots of opportunities out there on the streets of, when you walk around the streets of Seattle, to pick up many, many pieces. So we have a couple of questions, and Michael and Mickey, we have a couple of questions for both of you that are going on in the chat. So Mickey, the first one goes to you. Michael is based out of West Seattle. His studio is there in West Seattle. Where are you physically located?
Well, we are actually so very fortunate to live in an absolutely beautiful home that was built in 1907 on Capitol Hill. But when we bought it 30 years ago, it was not anywhere near the price that it is worth now. So I just want to make that clear.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Seattle is one of those cities that it's unfortunately out of reach for a lot of people. But if you get in early,
Right.
kind of
Right.
one of those things. So, Michael? We'll start with you. Do you have just an all-time favorite piece? Like, do you have something that either has a lot of meaning behind it that you just keep going back to? Just an all-time favorite piece, even back in your school days.
Oh, but all the way back to the school days.
Take us way back, Michael.
I mean, at Wash U, I like my final piece that I built was it was all steel. I was doing a lot of steel artwork back then, and I built a full functioning. It's like an armature that people sit in. It was a recreation of Michelangelo's Pietà, and it hinged over the top of the. So it's the Mary holding Jesus after he's come down off the cross, I believe, and so someone sits down as the Mary figure in this. It hinges closed, and then another person climbs in as the Jesus figure and lays in the position.
Oh my goodness!
Full sculpture, and I mean, it was like right on the edge of my skill level. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I learned how to make my own hinges. I poured myself in that piece and got to see it. I was really interested in making artwork at the time that people physically interacted with, and it was definitely the most successful piece that I made during my tenure at WashU, and it was a culmination of like learning from a whole bunch of different professors at once. It's just a really, like, I think that gave me a lot of motivation after I left WashU, because it was pretty much like the last week I finished that piece barely. We had a show. I got to see everybody interact with it, and then I tore my studio apart and moved home. And so I was like, I need a studio like immediately. And so it took me a little while. I mean, I made some furniture at my parents' house in Kansas City, and then I think I built a table and some shelves, and then I got the job at Chihuly. And by the time I moved out here, I was just desperate to get a studio. So I paid very little for my first apartment. It was a pretty crappy apartment, and then paid almost the same amount for a 300 square foot studio space. And I've never been without a studio since.
Got it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the physicality really of that piece at WashU, was one of those things. It sounds like where you said I have got to have this throughout my career. The physicality.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Mickey, one of your all-time favorites.
I don't think so, because I've been making jewelry for so long, and my work has gone through several different styles. I don't think so. I think for me, the whole thing is that there are literally thousands of people in the world wearing things that I made.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just the huge payback for me.
Absolutely. And bringing joy and completing a look, the completion part of it, again, that physicality that Michael was talking about, that you can envision your work, Michael, your work about to be in somebody's home with your delivery of your shelves, and knowing that it will help people in their lives in different ways, and that your hands, had the piece of that, really has to be inspiring to walk around and know that. And so we have a couple more questions. If you have a few moments, we put your websites in the chat. So if those of you who can access the chat, feel free to look at their websites. So just some parting words for our individuals from WashU who are, graduating at a really uncertain time still, and last year as well. Do you have any, Mickey, we'll start with you, any words of wisdom for our folks who are just graduating in this field, and where to start when it comes to either funding or collaboration or grant opportunities?
Well, I think that my thought is that the same creativity that you apply to your work, you have to also apply it to your life.
Hmm.
And basically you just don't take no for an answer. You know, there's always a way. You just have to find it. You just have to figure it out.
Thank you for that. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Mickey. Like the thing, what I loved about being an artist and moving out is like you're just taught to think different. And as long as you do that, as long as like when people are going this way, you're like looking that way, being like, what are there's always, I mean, people have lived in New York when it's been super expensive. People have lived in San Francisco when it's been super expensive. They've made beautiful things. They've found workshops. Sometimes it's about partnering with people and seeing like, or I did a lot of work in, like I found jobs that allowed me to use their wood shops after work, and I did side hustles that way. I mean, things like the YouTube thing for me, I didn't expect to become anything, but because I was just like driven and excited about it and sharing that excitement with other people, that's why it's grown. And I just kind of keeping that like improvisational spirit and excitement alive, and looking at all of your work as like an educational experience, not like I'm gonna work at this place forever, but what can I take from this place and apply to my end goal of like having my own workshop was my end goal the whole time. So
right. And you sort of keep your eyes on what's important to you and what will inspire you and keep your joy, at the forefront and the center of what you do, and work your way, like Mickey said, backwards or up that way with the goal in mind. And I think that's really inspiring. And just so you know, we have a lot of comments in the chat about how inspiring this has been for a lot of people who have been tuning in today, and that it's really is just one step at a time and keep moving forward is what the theme of today sounds like, and eventually you'll find your mission and your purpose, and bringing the outdoors in is exactly what I think resonates with a lot of people, especially today. So we are just about out of time, but I want to thank you again so much, Mickey and Michael, for your time and opening our eyes to your world, quite literally, with the tours and with your pieces. And if anyone out there who is watching would like to contact Michael and Mickey, they have really been generous with their time today and are open to brainstorming and sharing some of their tips and tricks and their views on art. So we want to thank you again so much for tuning in today. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we really look forward to seeing you in some of our future programming, both online and hopefully in person again. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Mickey.
thank you.
Bye-bye.